Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Tuesday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and oh boy, was last night a doozy. The Mets kicked off their season series opener with the Philadelphia Phillies, division rival, and although we were expecting a pitcher's duel, we didn't get that, but the game itself did not disappoint. At least from an excitement / nervousness / agita standpoint. And I'll tell you this, the Phillies are a good team, but the Mets won last night. And I was at Citizens Bank Park for the game. It was freezing. I got home super late, but I'm here nonetheless to talk about the game. I want to talk about, in particular, the offensive prowess of a couple of players. One in particular, and Noah Syndergaard's outing and Mickey Callaway's bullpen management. So, like I said, I was at the game last night, and it was an interesting environment. You can see that the Phillies are getting good again because the fans are starting to show up with a little bit more passion, for lack of a better word. And there was a good amount of Mets fans in the crowd, scattered throughout. A couple of times they attempted to get a Let's Go Mets chant started, and that didn't go so well. But it was a fun environment, fun atmosphere, and I'll always like Citizens Bank Park. It's a nice stadium. But this will probably have been my last game at Citizens Bank Park, and I'll say why in a moment. But if it's the last game, boy, it was a little bit of everything. Going into the game, it was Syndergaard versus Nola, so the expectation was for that of a pitcher's duel, and I gotta say, Noah got off to a really good start in the game. He had really nice command of his pitches in the first two innings. But man, things just fell apart after that, and it kind of makes you scratch your head because it looked like he had really good stuff, and then it just disappeared. It was like the switch was flipped, and he forgot how to pitch. So I'll try to go through the action of the game last night, which was, again, it was crazy. The Mets got to Nola early. Mets struck first. At no point did the Mets trail in last night's game. The game was tied a couple of times, but at no point did the Mets trail. Mets jumped out to an early 3-0 lead thanks to an RBI double by Wilson Ramos in the third inning, and 2 RBI double, I should say, and then that was followed up by an RBI single from Jeff McNeil, who, by the way, one of the recipients of last night's game ball. 3 hits on the night, and not 1 but 2 unbelievably clutch, stellar defensive plays at third base, despite having started the game in left field. So McNeil absolutely earns his game ball for last night. So anyway, Noah's staked to a 3-0 lead and immediately gives it back. Immediately. And the most annoying part about it, for me, was that he started the rally for the Phillies by walking the pitcher. I just don't understand. I don't understand. I don't know what's wrong with Noah, but something is not right now with Syndergaard, and I hope he's able to figure it out. I hope that Dave Island knows what's going on and is able to pinpoint a couple of things that Noah might be doing wrong and get that fixed, because to walk the pitcher and literally send an invitation to the Phillies, please get back into this game. That 3-run lead that I was staked to, I don't want it. And he immediately gave it back. It was 3-3 after the third inning. What do the Mets do in the following frame? They get 2 runs right back. Robbie Cano ends up with a double to drive in 2, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And then what happens? Syndergaard gets the ball back in the bottom of the 4th, and he promptly gives those 2 runs right back up. So it was a weird outing for Syndergaard. He ended up going 5. He threw over 100 pitches. Did strike out 9. Again, he looked like he had his good stuff at the beginning of the game, but particularly that pitch that he threw to Michael Franco was just an absolute meatball. I mean, it was just a slow slow for Syndergaard especially. Slow pitch right over the middle of the plate, and Franco didn't miss it. I mean, he put the ball in the seats, and it was a tie game. The atmosphere was pretty exciting, and it's a little bit of a reminder of what things used to be like between the Mets and the Phillies in 06, 07, 08, when both teams were really good. Of course, we know the outcomes of those 3 seasons. Not great for us, pretty damn good for them. But this is a different year, and it looks like both teams are going to be good for the season. The Phillies have a really good lineup, I have to say. Very much like the Braves, I think the Phillies have a really good lineup. And I don't know, I've seen all 3 teams that are the competitors in the National League East, and I think I put both the Phillies and the Braves lineups at this point ahead of the Nationals. I just am not afraid of the Nationals lineup, and I'll see how that changes as the season goes on. But in any event, so Syndergaard goes 5, as I said, and game ball number 2 goes to the first man to come out of the bullpen, who was Seth Lugo. And Seth Lugo pitched an absolute brilliant 2 innings of work. Threw up 2 goose eggs, which was exactly what the team needed. Gave the Mets 2 innings, and I'm wondering how much of Lugo's early season struggles were a result of this virus that was going around the Mets locker room. Maybe that was the whole cause of Lugo just not being effective earlier in the season. But in any event, he was very effective last night. And then it is the 8th inning, and in the top half of the 8th, I'm sitting in my seat. I was sort of down the third base line in between third base and left field behind the Mets dugout, and looking out into the bullpen, and I can see Familia warming up. And at this point, oh, I forgot, Nimmo. This was the best part. This was baseball being weird. It's a 5-5 game when Syndergaard gets pulled in after the 5th inning, and Brandon Nimmo comes up and hits a solo home run. So the Mets have a 6-5 lead. That part was important. I missed that. Anyway, fast forward back to the 8th inning, as I was just saying, and it's Familia who comes out of the pen. And first batter he faces, base hit. And we're sitting there like, Jesus Christ, here we go. And the next batter is a walk. And then we've got Michael Franco, with the tying and go-ahead runs on base, and he hits an absolute missile, one hopper down to third base, where the new third baseman, Jeff McNeil, makes an unbelievable play, fires to second for 1 out, return throw to first, double play, and you're thinking, okay, runner on third, 2 outs, maybe, just maybe, Familia can get out of this. Familia proceeds to walk not 1 but 2 batters to load the bases, and this is Mickey Callaway question mark number 1 of the game. Familia is one of those relievers that either has it or he doesn't, and last night was one of those nights where very clearly and very early on you could see that he didn't have it. And when you have a guy like that in your bullpen, I will give Callaway credit for getting Gazelman up and loose pretty early in the bottom of the 8th inning, when he could sort of see Familia was struggling. You could argue that Gene Segura never should have batted against Gazelman, McCutcheon never should have batted against Familia. That's what I meant to say. Before that bases loaded walk was issued, or walk to load the bases was issued. You could have argued that Gazelman should have come into the game at that point, because again, Familia just didn't have it. But the point of all of this is you've got a 1-run lead you're protecting. You've got the best closer in baseball and one of the best relievers in baseball in your bullpen, and you don't have him warming up. You don't have him as the parachute, as the safety net for Familia in that situation. And I know after the game, Mickey said, we're not going to use Diaz for 4-out saves or 5-out saves or whatever. He's going to get 3 outs. And that's fine, but it also contradicts something that he's said all along, which is we're going to use we're going to let the situation and the inning dictate when we use our guys. And if a situation could dictate when you need to use Edwin Diaz, last night's was a perfect situation where you needed to use Edwin Diaz. They didn't, went with Gazelman instead, and on 4 pitches, Gazelman walks the first batter he faces to force in the tying run. Now, of course, that run gets charged to Familia, rightfully so, because he deserved it. But I will tip the cap to Gazelman, because facing Bryce Harper, he did get him to fly out with the bases remaining loaded. The Phillies had the opportunity to take the lead in the game, and they did not. So Gazelman did get himself out of that jam. Remained on to pitch the bottom half of the 9th. Game stayed tied, extra innings. Now, it's worth noting that it was freezing in Philadelphia last night. I mean, it was so cold, I thought I was watching a football game. Windy, cold, bitter, just a bitter cold night. And extra innings was the last thing I wanted. So we left. And I admit we left. And I will say the reason that we left was because I saw Gazelman was staying in the game. And I really didn't have a good feeling about it. But Gazelman, as I said, did get through the bottom half of the 9th. Extra innings came, and again, more tightrope walking. So Luis Avilan walked the tightrope, got himself a win out of it. He ended up pitching and became the pitcher of record. And in the top of the 11th, the Mets had two guys on, and Conforto came up, and back up, because this is Mickey Callaway question number 2. Pinch hitting for the pitcher who was in the 2 spot in the order, after they switched Alonso out for Dom Smith. Pinch hitting for the pitcher was the only bench player. Runner on first and second, nobody out. This is after Lagares and Nimmo get on base. Lagares with a base hit, and Nimmo with a walk. And they bring up d'Arnaud, and there's nobody out. And it really is a bunt situation. I mean, it is a fundamental baseball bunt situation. And you've got 4 more starting pitchers on your bench, 2 of whom are excellent athletes in Steven Matz and Jacob deGrom. I'm not advocating for using deGrom in that situation, but if you are really intent on getting a bunt down and sacrificing the runners to second and third, why not use one of those pitchers instead of d'Arnaud, who you end up asking to bunt, you waste his spot, you waste that last bench piece, and d'Arnaud expectedly is unable to get the bunt down. Bunts and misses, foul balls, first and second, and the third pitch he pops up. It's a bad decision, and that has to be a pitcher in that spot. But what ends up happening, of course, is that Conforto comes up, ends up driving in the go-ahead run on a hard hit ball to really right at Rhys Hoskins. And you could argue that should have been ruled a hit, but the ball was hit right at the first baseman, and Hoskins wasn't able to handle it. It was a hard hit ball, but it ends up trickling off of his glove into shallow right field. Lagares scores from second. Exciting play at the plate. Terrible throw from Hernandez, and Lagares is safe. Mets go up 7-6. So let me just say also, this has been the longest game recap ever, and this was a trying game to watch. It really was. Even to listen to it in the car on the way home to my brother's house, it was just, heart in your throat kind of feeling. But we have a closer now who is a lockdown closer, and he struck out the side on 11 pitches, and he did so against the heart of the batting order. Harper, Hoskins, Real Muto. Strikeout. Mets win. So Mickey Callaway and Diaz, by the way, earns the 3rd game ball last night. His first of the year. Mickey Callaway had made some really questionable decisions last night. His bullpen management remains an issue for me, and the decision to use d'Arnaud instead of a pitcher to sacrifice in the top half really could have backfired. The Mets don't score there. Who knows what happens? Mets win, 10-6, first place in the East by a half game over the Phillies. This series continues. Tonight, the Mets have Wheeler on the mound against Nick Pivetta, and tomorrow night, Mets against Jake Arrieta. So, if the first game was any indication, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a seesaw game, and I have confidence that the Mets have the horses to hold up and keep up with any team offensively. The pitching situation remains a big issue. So, that'll wrap it up for today. Sorry for the extended recap. I don't know why, but I just kind of have diarrhea of the mouth this morning. Could be because I'm running on 4 hours of sleep. Who knows? But I did want to say this will be probably, like I said, my last game in Philly. I won't be able to go to tonight's or tomorrow's games. My brother lives right outside of Philadelphia, so it's kind of convenient for us to go to games in Philly. But he took a job in New York, and he's moving to Jersey. And so the good thing there is that instead of me having to drive to Philly to see the Mets play the Phillies when the Mets are in town, I'll be able to drive to the city and stay at my brother's house, take mass transit into the game, and I don't have to see the Mets play the Phillies if I want to see the Mets play the Phillies with my brothers. So that's a good thing. Anyway, that'll wrap it up for today. Not that anybody cares about my game watching preferences and whatnot, but I'm glad that I was able to go, and I'm glad the Mets were able to pull out a W. Thanks for watching. I will be back tomorrow to talk about tonight's game, which I will not be able to watch thanks to the archaic blackout restrictions of Major League Baseball and cable television / streaming television, which I thought should have gotten rid of that. But anyway, I'll be listening to Howie and Wayne on the radio this evening. So till tomorrow, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go.